Hello everyone and welcome to Daytime. I'm Bronwyn and today I'm here to talk to you about F1 with our wonderful guest Louis. How are you doing today, Louis?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about the season that's just happened. It was a really interesting season, lots to talk about.
Definitely. So with the end of the 2022 season, as we've just come up with, we had a very, very clear winner.
Yes, Max Verstappen won the title. Very convincing title win. I think he won it in Japan, which is 2 races before the end. And
which is a significant period of
time of him being champion already. Yeah. So it was an exciting start to the season, and then as Max became more dominant, it kind of tailed off. But
do you think he deserves the win?
I'd say so, yes. There's not really anything I can say against him. He won 15 races in the season. He was dominant, and even when he did make a mistake, like he span in Hungary, he still won that race. So like he'll make a mistake, he'll come back stronger from it. So there's not really much I can say against him.
That's very true, but with Verstappen being very clearly in first place, that meant that we had a bit of a battle for second and third.
Yes, so
very, very tight battle for
very
second and
close. Going into the last couple of races, they were pretty much neck and neck, and it's Perez and Leclerc.
Yeah.
And Leclerc ended up coming in second, which is very good for him. It's the first time he's vice champion, so that's good for him.
Stepping up on that ladder.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully next year he'll be at the top of the ladder, but who can say? It's Ferrari. There'll always be something happening. So he won by 3 points, which is, like we said, a very tight margin.
It really did come down to that last race. It was who was in second and third would determine who was in
Literally,
second and
it
third.
was one of the races where it's like, if you're ahead, you're ahead. It's not like one of the ones where you can still win in fifth. It was, you had to be on the top of your game, and he did a really good race. He stayed where he needed to be, let's say that.
That's brilliant, but as he's a Ferrari driver, I think there's one big elephant in the room, should we say, to talk about with Ferrari, and that comes down to their team strategy.
Yes, it's interesting. I'm a Ferrari fan myself, and I never feel fully comfortable going into a race because there's always going to be something that they'll not mess up, but they'll get wrong. So whether it's the wrong tyres, bringing them in at the wrong time, just indecisiveness. And I think if they want to look at winning the title next year, which of course is the aim, they really need to narrow down on what they want. Yeah,
honing in on the specifics.
The specific decisions that they need to get better at, and they need to leave it to the strategist rather than getting the drivers to decide. Because there's been times in the season where they've been asking the drivers like detailed questions when they're driving around the track at like 200 miles an hour, which you think maybe that's the people on solid ground should be saying that.
Yeah. And with Ferrari, I mean, there's been a couple of ups and downs with their cars as well. The biggest one being the Sainz fire in Austria, where his car just kind of set on fire. Yeah,
it's kind of emblematic of the season where he was in second or third at the time, and then his engine just cut out, set on fire. He had to jump out of the car. And it really shows that, like, if it's not the strategy messing up or the driver's making a mistake, the car will just set on fire. So,
and I mean, it's a credit to them that they got so far as well as a team in the constructions.
I think, the fact that they got second is kind of surprising. Of course, it's good, but
Definitely. And it's not the first time or the only time it happened. We had the Charles Leclerc engine cut out in France as well.
and the crash, all sorts of stuff,
That, the scream from that was chilling.
It's haunting hearing him,
And that's not the only kind of big crashes we had when it came to this season either. I mean, the big one that everyone was talking about was the Zhou crash, which was where the car completely flipped.
Yeah, in Silverstone. It was terrifying seeing the car spin upside down, flip around,
And I mean, you know it's bad when they have to like cut
away from it, and they you know the crash has happened, but you don't know what's happened. So
because it's a big rule, isn't it, that you can't show the crash until you know that everyone
is okay,
all right. Right, so we just got to see the Zhou crash actually
again,
And it's as terrifying now.
Yeah, that's the first time I think I've watched it back since Silverstone, and it's still terrifying seeing the car spin round and flip over, because it's unnatural. The cars are supposed to be on four wheels, not up in the air.
My heart, watching that live, my heart was in my mouth.
It was horrible, especially like we said, they can't cut to the driver straight away. So it's like I think it was only 4 or 5 minutes of like deciding, like getting him out of the car and everything, but it's still terrifying.
Just the sitting there of, is he okay?
Yeah.
Is he not okay? And I mean, big thing there, we've got to talk about the car structure, was the introduction of the halo.
Yeah, so they introduced it in 2018 and it's really helped. Like the safety of the drivers, if we look at last year when Lewis Hamilton, the tyre ran over the back of his head, like before then, that's like a serious injury. But with the halo taking the brunt of it now, it's so much better. And you look back at cars before 2018 and they almost look like exposed to the elements without the halo, and the drivers are just out in free air, anything can happen.
And I mean, it was the irony with Hamilton's as well, that he was so against them, and then
of course it saved him. So it is interesting seeing the drivers who were against the halo device. Now, of course, it saved them.
Completely for it. Well, we've come to the end of our 2022 season, but that of course brings in the 2023 season instead. And with any new season, we've got some drivers leaving and some new drivers. And the one that's kind of shocked or rocked the boat in the F1 world has to be Vettel. Yeah,
it's going to be sad seeing the paddock without Sebastian. Like, he's been around the paddock since 2006. So that's a long time.
A very long
He's become an icon of the sport, like 53 race wins. He's raced with some of the biggest teams, 4 world championships.
Which
the youngest world the world champion. Like, you don't win 4 world titles without being quite a good driver, so he's going to leave a big hole in the sport.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, aside from just his racing stats, he's like a dad or a father figure to some of the other drivers as well.
He's kind of, as he's got older and kind of matured, he's kind of become not a better person, but like a more embellished person. He's taken the drivers under his wing. He's been doing a lot of activism as well. It's like he's progressed through his career and also as a person. And he's taken Mick Schumacher under his wing.
Entirely. And I mean, you've got to talk about the fact that he didn't quite get there, but he did get to 299 race starts, just so close to that 300.
299 it's a nice way for Sebastian to leave off, because in my eyes, hopefully he'll come back and get that 300th and further forward. But also it's a nice way to leave off. Like 299 race starts is a lot of races, so it's good.
And I mean, it kind of fits. He didn't quite get that 5th championship.
No, but here's hoping maybe he comes back and wins it. Who can say?
Entirely. F1 is so out there.
Exactly, yeah. There's always room.
Definitely. And you talked about Mick Schumacher there, who's another person who's leaving us from F1.
Yeah, it's going to be sad seeing him leave as well. I mean, he's a young driver. Yeah. He won F2. He had an interesting first season with a car that wasn't capable to really race with anyone. He had an interesting teammate. So there wasn't really any kind of gauge of how good of a driver he was. And this year, I think he didn't necessarily do enough to show that he's capable of staying in F1.
Definitely. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure on him.
There is a lot of pressure.
I mean, for those who don't know, he's Michael Schumacher's son, who is renowned as one of the best F1 drivers.
So it's a big shadow cast over him, and I think that put Mick under more scrutiny, because if your dad's Michael Schumacher, 7-time world champion, like, it's going to be like, if you make any mistakes, it's kind of like, well, your dad wouldn't do that. So it's interesting seeing like the lens that he was put under. But like I said, he's young. He might come back into the sport. He might get a reserve driver role. Definitely. Who knows?
If he is coming back, what teams do you think might pick him up?
Well, Audi are joining in 2026, and of course they're a German company. He's a German driver. There's always room for that. Or maybe Mercedes bring him on, German connection again. Ferrari, maybe he was a Ferrari driver for like in their academy. So who knows?
So there's a lot of possibilities for him to come back.
Yeah.
Okay, that's brilliant. I mean, I'm glad that he
has room to come back.
Has room to come back, definitely, and I hope he does. But with old drivers leaving, you've got to have the new drivers. So what are some of the new drivers that we're getting in this season?
So we've got Oscar Piastri. He won F2 in 2021.
Oh,
So,
wow.
of course, he's a good driver. You have to be good to
well
win
set up.
one of the junior series. So he's coming to McLaren. I'm excited to see him race because he looks quick, and he won 3 titles in the junior categories back to back. So a quick driver, let's say. So that'll be exciting to see.
A strong setup.
Yeah, and then replacing Mick at Haas, we have Nico Hülkenberg, which is an interesting choice. Nico is 35 years old,
Okay.
so not really a spring chicken, but he has the unfortunate kind of, not award, but kind of, it's part of his career that he's started 181 races and he's never got a podium or a win, and he's always been quite unlucky. So it's interesting seeing Haas choose him rather than sticking with Mick.
I mean, it's an interesting choice for F1 if you haven't won in F2 to then.
Yeah, it's interesting to see someone
you
who's
up.
had their choice, like their chances in F1, come back for another one, whereas Mick, who maybe didn't have the full extent of chances, has kind of just been pushed to the wayside. But maybe it will work.
Maybe, fingers crossed. And I mean, we also have Nick DeVries coming up.
Yes, he's exciting to see him as well because he won back in 2020, the F2 champion. So he's not really been in the sport. He's been around the sport. He's been a reserve driver. He stepped in this season for Williams in Monza, I think, and he got points. So he is a quick driver. So it'll be interesting to see him step in and see what he can do.
Brilliant. Well, with the end of that brings us to the end of the chat show. Thank you everyone for joining us today on Daytimes and our F1 chat. And I hope that you'll all be back next week with a brand new chat about a brand new topic. Thank you for watching.
Talking about F1 stuff, hoping that the